Howdy, I'm Bill Southern, and this is Nugget Shooter Journals. Glad to have you aboard, and we're going to talk a little bit today about coils and why would you want to switch coils during the day, or even machines for that matter. And we're sitting in the shadow of Rich Hill today. A lot of history here, a lot of gold found here. I get a lot of questions from you folks asking about coils and the difference in sizes and when you would switch coil sizes. And much of this is going to depend on the type of machine you're using at the time. And I have with me today a VLF machine, and this one has a 5-inch coil on it. And I also have with me a GP 3500 from my lab, and this one has an 8-inch coil on it currently. Okay, now most coils are designed, if not all, one of two ways. You either have a concentric or a mono coil, which comes into the ground in kind of a cone shape or a V shape from the bottom of the coil. So it's going down like this. A double D coil, on the other hand, is putting a signal into the ground shaped more like a bow. And as a result, many times, especially with pulse induction, a mono coil is going to go a little bit deeper down on the tip of the signal. And so as you pick a bigger coil, the more you have in a signal going down, and the deeper it will go with pulse induction. And you also get more ground coverage at the top. But it's give and take. By having a larger coil on this machine, say an 18-inch coil, which is going to be about this much bigger around, I'm giving up sensitivity to smaller targets, shallow, and listening more for deeper targets, farther underground. And with pulse induction, it's a lot more pronounced. When you go from an 8-inch coil to an 11-inch coil, 16-inch coil, 18-inch coil, and up, 24 and even bigger, it makes a pronounced difference. And problem is, although it sounds real romantic digging those deep nuggets, we also dig the deep trash. And in nugget hunting, we dig all targets. So yeah, you got to dig a few deep pieces of trash for those deep nuggets, but there can be an advantage. And pulse induction machines, because of the way they operate, also handle the ground a little bit better in some cases, depending on where you are, that you may or may not be able to use a VLF. VLF detector, very low frequency. PI means pulse induction. VLF means very low frequency, and VLF detectors have been around for a long time. And this is a MineLab Gold Monster. There's many good VLF detectors out there, and there's a few other good pulse induction detectors. And why do I use MineLab? Well, MineLab works best for me in the type of ground that I hunt here in Arizona. So does that mean if you don't have a MineLab, you're not going to find gold? No, there's good machines out there. If they're used properly, they're going to help you recover gold. Thing is, the detector doesn't find the gold, my friends. You do. And if you have this machine, which costs under $1,000, in the neighborhood of, I'm going to say, I guess $7.99, depending on if you have military discounts or other discounts. And this one over here, new, sold for around $3,000, and even today, used, it's a $2,000, $2,500 machine. But neither one is going to find any more gold if you don't get the darn thing over gold yourself. And a lot of people don't realize that the key to finding gold is doing it yourself. Okay, research and hard work lead to gold. But once you do that research and hard work, you have to know how to work the ground you're on. Okay, so we've gone a little bit into the coils. Why would I want to switch coils or machines? Well, if I'm hunting shallow bedrock, and I know there's a lot of small gold, and I won't be missing any big gold because it's shallow bedrock. The gold's not down 2 feet. in many cases. Some bedrock has cracks that deep, I guess. But generally the bedrock's a little shallower. So I'm going to use a VLF machine most times, and with a small coil. So I can focus my energy on small nuggets in small cracks and crevices, and I can maneuver well. When would I put a bigger coil on this machine? Well, to cover more ground. If this is the only machine I own, and I have a different coil for it, a 5x10, or 10.5 by 5, something like that is what the exact measurement is on this bigger, larger coil for this one. I would use that if I'm in a little bit deeper ground and want to get more coverage. But generally I keep the 5-inch coil on my VLF because I use that machine for hunting bedrock and small pieces in old tailings piles, stuff like that. When I'm hunting deep ground and really highly mineralized ground, I'm generally using a pulse induction machine. And okay, back to does that mean I won't find any gold if I don't have both types of machines? No, it just means that you're a little bit limited in what you can and can't do efficiently. Pulse induction machines, I go back over the same spot with different coils if it's deep ground. 8-inch coil is great for shallow hunting, bedrock, and a foot or less of material, much like the VLF machine, the Gold Monster. It's great in 12 inches or less of material, and we're hunting shallow stuff, small stuff. If I want to hunt bigger stuff, I'm going to go to a bigger coil. I like the 11-inch, which will go considerably deeper in the 8, and I also like the 15x12 and some of the larger coils, but those, you got to understand, are specialty coils. If you're in an area like you see behind me with all these boulders, you're going to have an awful hard time getting those great big coils down flat to the ground, thus eliminating an advantage you would have had by having that great big coil on there. MyLab's GPZ 7000, which I consider probably one of, if not the most deep-seeking detector for gold nugget hunting in existence. If you can't get that big 14-inch coil flat on the ground, then you're not getting that advantage. Although because of its technology, it'll hear smaller targets deeper than the pulse induction in some cases as well. We'll go into more on that later because we're talking kind of about coils today. So, does that mean, like I said a minute ago, that you have to go out and buy a pulse induction and a VLF to nugget hunt seriously? Yes and no. If you're going to do it as a serious pastime or profession, yes, you need more than one machine. If you're going to do it once in a while or just when you're on vacation, then one of the good VLF units would suffice. Simple as that. I'm pretty serious about this, so I have to have more than one machine to cover what I want to do. I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, but the main thing is I've watched a lot of people buy highly priced machines before they ever thought or knew that they might like nugget hunting, and go out and hunt, and the experience isn't as much fun as they thought, and they realize how hard a work this really is. And now they've got that big expensive detector and it sits in the closet. That's not good. Like my old friend Jim Strait said, a detector in the closet only gathers dust. So, and that's true. In many cases, if you're new at this, starting out with a VLF detector in the mid-price range, I guess, well, actually, the lowest price range you're going to find for a really efficient metal detector for gold nuggets is going to be used probably 400 and up, and new 700 and up is the neighborhood you're going to find some of the really good VLF machines in. Okay, trying to use a lot of the lower end detectors you see in some of the big box stores just isn't going to cut it. And the reason is, though they'll find targets in a park or on a beach, they're going to have trouble hearing through this mineralized soil. And our gold nugget machines are specialized to hunt in this mineralized soil, giving us a distinct advantage in that soil, where the machines won't even balance, or if they are balanced, they're only going to get minimal depth. These machines will still punch pretty darn deep into the ground while making most of that mineralization and other stuff invisible, and you're looking for targets. Now, this machine doesn't have one, but this machine has a meter on it and a discriminator. This has discrimination, but it's just a blanking of the middle of the signal. I do not use discrimination when I hunt gold nuggets, period. I don't. If I'm in an area where I can't hunt any other way because there's so much ironstone, I might try the discrimination on this gold monster for a situation like that. For the most part, I do not ever use discrimination. And the reason for that is you have to give up quite a bit of depth to use discrimination with any coil. But if you're in an area you can hunt no other way, there's an advantage to it. But those situations are rare, and I generally hunt in all metal on all my machines and in the deepest mode that I can hunt with a stable threshold. And stable threshold is very important. And if you got a coil you can't ground balance, many times it's simply your sensitivity is not adjusted correctly to allow the coil to balance. So smaller coils are going to focus into a smaller area and hit smaller targets at better depth than a large coil in the same area generally. Bigger coils are going to hear larger targets deeper than the smaller coil, and with the VLF you're going to hear the small stuff almost or as well. But with the pulse induction, it's not that way. Pulse induction, you give up sensitivity to smaller gold by going to bigger coils and some of the bigger, deeper settings. So as a result, like I said earlier, we have to hunt a good patch. You got a good patch to say, I don't know, 8 inches deep, average up to 2 feet. You're gonna have to hunt that with a couple different coils, in my opinion. I'd go over it with an 8 inch, probably an 11 inch, and then a bigger coil to see if there's anything big on bedrock that I could not hear with the smaller coils. And I guess that's pretty much it on coils. Except for elliptical. Everybody wants to know why people get elliptical coils as opposed to round coils. Supposedly there is a difference in sensitivity in some cases to the tip of the coil for smaller stuff, but the main purpose we get elliptical coils is to fit into places you can't get the bigger round coils. So a 14x7 coil can slide into tighter spots that even an 8 inch coil might not be able to slip into, and you still have a larger coil with a larger winding, which allows for hearing a little bit deeper targets than the 8 inch coil may in some cases. And again, much of this depends on the ground. Where you have to adjust your settings to have a stable machine is going to greatly also affect which coil you're going to choose to use in a given area. Some coils just are too sensitive to work in some spots. You have to maybe switch over from a mono to a double D on pulse induction. This little guy has double D coils, both of them, and they don't make concentric or mono coils for this machine. Pulse induction, I can use either a mono or a double D. Now, if I'm in an area where I cannot use an 11 inch mono coil because it just will not, no matter what I do, stay stable or ground balance properly, I'll switch to a double D. And what you're giving up is that little tip on the concentric coil that comes down like this, or the double D rounds like this, you got that little tip. But to get that extra depth advantage, there's a lot of overlapping that you have to do to make sure you're taking advantage of that extra depth. If you're overlapping your coil too far, you're missing ground with every swing. And that's why we swing so slow, so low. And we're trying to get every inch we can out of these machines. Just a little bit counts. Just a little bit counts. And moving these coils slow is very important. The smaller coils will handle a little bit quicker swing here and there, but the bigger coils, you got to move pretty slow sometimes to hear those deep, big targets. And if I'm talking snail's pace. And people ask why we put the electrical tape on the edge of the coil. Well, so black sand and other material does not get in there and cause false signals. If you get enough magnetic material caught in between the coil cover and the coil, it'll give you false signals, believe it or not. It will. And we used to stick a diamond between people's coil cover and their coil back in the old days for a joke, but sometimes people get pretty mad, so it's not a good idea to do that. And if you got any more questions on coils, I'll go into them for you. This was sent in by several viewers on my channel wanting to know in depth why I switch coils and when I do. And the only other thing I'll go into here would be aftermarket coils. Are they better? Are they worse than the manufacturer's coil? No. I have some aftermarket coils that I use, but for the most part I use the manufacturer's suggested coil, the ones they built for the machine that I'm using. I have found purposes for elliptical coils, and as far as them being better or worse, I like the MindLab coils on my MindLab machine. I like the Garrett coils on the Garrett machine. I like the White's coils on the White's machines, and on and on. So the magic trick to finding more gold isn't necessarily switching coils if you haven't gotten over gold in the first place. The different coils come in after you've learned to find gold and places to find the gold, and you have a reason to switch coils, if that makes any sense. So for now, if you like these videos and you're getting anything at all out of them, hit that subscribe button and like these videos, and I'd sure like to hear from you, a comment or two. Tell me what you think, and if there's anything I can put up here that would help you find your first or next gold nugget. And for now, Nugget Shooter out.